So it's been a few days since the Black Hawk Down campaign for Delta Force has been released. It's free to download, it's a DLC, anybody can get their hands on it and play it. And although it's free and it's available and it's been out a few days, it is sitting at mostly negative on Steam as of right now, with only 35% being positive. Now, I kind of land somewhere in the 35% positive overall because I actually really think this campaign is well done and it's a really, really fun experience. But I definitely understand the negatives. Like, I fully feel what people are feeling with some of the bad sides and the issues with this game. And I'm going to gloss over them really quickly because that's not really what I want to focus on. There's already been so much talk about it. But generally, the one out of the gate is performance. Performance is pretty bad for a lot of people across the board. It's a UE5 game. What do you expect, really? It would have been nice for them to actually spend a little bit more time refining things, optimizing, making it run a little bit better. I'm using a gaming laptop with a Ryzen 7 5800H and an RTX 3060. And for the most part, the game runs smooth. I have a 60 FPS cap, it's enabled by default, and I'm usually hitting it sitting around the high 50s and 60 FPS. If I turn the cap off, I will get better performance at times, but the fluctuations of the frame rate really does make the game feel more unstable and less consistent. So I just keep the cap on because, hey, it's single player. I don't need to have like 100 some FPS. Even though I don't get that anyway, I'll maybe top out at like 70, maybe 80 FPS, depending on the environment that I'm in at any moment. So, and that's with the high preset at 1440p. So it's actually pretty stable and pretty playable for me. But I understand there's people out there who are having issues. Obviously, I get performance drops, right? Like flying into the city, you saw my frame rate probably hit 30 FPS. It dropped. There's later on, you're flying in Super 6.4. You can use the miniguns. I get FPS drops there as well. It's not as smooth and as stable as I would like, but it is absolutely playable for me for the most part. So performance aside, there's also just the fact that the game uses two clients, like simultaneously. You have to launch Delta Force and then launch the campaign after selecting the mission and getting a team together. Then you go into the campaign and then it's like a separate client. It's kind of weird. It's kind of annoying. I understand that people don't like running two clients at the same time. Hasn't really been an issue for me, but I fully understand what people are talking about, and I would much rather not have to do that, to clog up resources on your PC running two clients simultaneously. It's just asinine in my mind. I would much rather launch the Black Hawk Down campaign separately and a standalone launcher. Like, that to me would be infinitely better than having to launch Delta Force. Like, especially how it acts. It's a DLC. It acts as a DLC, so it demands you have Delta Force installed beforehand. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I don't see them changing that because to me, it's like they want you to play the multiplayer, right? This is an afterthought. This is a DLC. They want you to download the game to play and buy their skin bundles. This is just kind of like, oh, here's a throwback to all the OG Delta Force fans who want to play Black Hawk Down again. Only we're not really getting Black Hawk Down, are we? We're getting a movie representation of Black Hawk Down. We're getting the movie that's playable. And that's not a bad thing. It is a very cool experience. The chaos, the battle, the sense of the scale of the battle here is phenomenal. Like the visuals, the graphics, the sounds, everything about this experience is like top-notch, high quality. It's just there's some gameplay issues here and there that I don't particularly feel fond of. So let's talk about the first thing out of the gate. There's no real single player to this game. Now, if you're like me, and you remember from the past when there was all this talk of Black Hawk Down coming out, they were like, oh, we're going to remaster the Black Hawk Down. That's basically what they were saying, was remastering, remaking. We're going to reimagine Black Hawk Down. That led me to believe that it was going to be a recreation of the 2003 Black Hawk Down campaign from Nova Logic. And even if it wasn't a one-to-one recreation of that, I was expecting to have a single player, especially how they were saying it's essentially single player with the ability to play co-op. But when it actually comes out, it's basically co-op with the possibility of just going solo into the co-op experience to get your ass handed to you. And it'll actually warn you too. When you launch in, it will tell you, hey, this is going to be insanely difficult. Good luck. You're going to need it because it's almost impossible to complete this. I would say it is, but Obviously not, because when you are selecting the missions, you can see the world records for the mission timing. So let's say somebody completed it in 5 minutes, that would be a new world record for both squad play and solo. And apparently solo, people have been completing every single one of these missions. I can't fucking fathom how, because you will run out of ammo so quickly when playing this game. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the idea of like limiting the resources you have, kind of like in real life. Like these guys in real life were only really equipped to handle like a 30-minute op. They weren't going in. They didn't even bring water. That's how fast they were expecting this to go. In and out in 30 minutes. However, this is a game, right? And the way that things are portrayed in a game will not line up with the way things are portrayed in real life. For example, in real life, there was 160 men deployed on this operation. That's a whole lot of Rangers and a whole lot of Delta. When you're playing the campaign, do you see 160 friendlies running around, AI, on your side? No. You see like 4 Rangers, 5 Rangers, 6 Rangers, very limited amount of guys. And then the Delta teams are really just you as the player, and maybe some of your friends playing as your squad mates, but that's it. There is nothing else. There is like, when you're storming the building and you're clearing all the rooms and you're trying to gather all the civilians, the lieutenants, the people the VIPs you're trying to capture, it's just you and your 3 friendlies if you have a full squad. In real life, there were like a lot of Delta guys clearing out each room all simultaneously. Like it was much, much faster. This is the equivalent of like playing Ready or Not or SWAT, right? Where an actual SWAT operation is going to have dozens and dozens of SWAT officers clearing a building, but you're just playing as like 4 guys, 5 guys, clearing an entire building by yourself, dropping chem lights at each doorway saying this room's clear, and then proceeding forward. It's realistic in a sense that the way you conduct your operations and all that kind of shit, but ultimately, it's not realistic because you don't have the numbers of troops or the numbers of men you would actually have in these scenarios. So you have this strange imbalance where there's like 4 of you, a whole shitload of militia. You're outnumbered probably the same way that they would have been in real life because you had thousands of militia pouring down on them along with civilians and 160 guys. But where it gets skewed is like you're representing as a single player like a whole bunch of dudes, right? Like you as a player can kill, like I think my highest kill count was like 90 something in one mission. I killed 90 something enemy combatants by myself. That's almost 1/3 of the estimated deaths of the actual Somalis in this entire battle in one mission. And that's just me. That's not counting the other guy or my other teammates that I had with me, the randoms I had that also got 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 kills. Like we basically in one mission killed all the Somalis that were killed in the Battle of Mogadishu. So when you think of the numbers there, things don't line up, right? It just doesn't make sense. So how do you fix that? Well, it's simple. You give me the ammo pool that I would have relative to all the people that I'm representing. So if I'm like one dude and I'm basically acting like I'm 10 guys in a battle, you're going to kind of have to give me the ammunition to represent those 10 guys, right? If you're giving me the ammunition pool of an individual soldier going into this battle, but then I have like no AI teammates, I'm on my own, and I'm like having to clear out like 100 some dudes by myself, that's just not going to happen, right? You're giving me the ammunition of an individual soldier, but that's actually deployed in real life in this conflict, but you're having me represent as a player like 10 or 15 of them. So it's that inconsistency. It's not congruent with the way a player should experience a game, right? And that's the problem. If we had more AI teammates, if there was more AI running around, or I had AI teammates, or I was able to get ammo from AI teammates, if I can just go up to any random AI and be like, give me a magazine, and he'd give me like 1 mag, that would make a difference. Because as a solo player, there's nothing you can do here. Like, you're really like, your hands are tied. You pick your character when you start up. It's like you either be a medic, a sniper, a gunner, an assaulter, You get certain abilities based on what you're choosing. You either get extra med kits or you get extra ammo. And if you can't have both, so you have to really plan accordingly. And it's a very difficult experience when you're playing it alone. And it really comes down to the sense of lethality. So let me talk about something. This game reminds me a lot of Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter on PC. Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter on the PC was a extremely difficult, challenging, and unforgiving game, the exact same way that Black Hawk Down is. I love how difficult Black Hawk Down is. I love how challenging and unforgiving it is. There's no checkpoints. You start at the beginning, you have to get all the way to the end and not die once. Especially if you're solo, you can't die. Like, you have to not die once if you're playing solo. At least if you have teammates, you can get revived. So the single player is really an afterthought. They really forced co-op down your throat. The only way to really practically achieve completing this is with random players. You can do this maybe with 2 people if you're both really good and really slow and well coordinated. But it's much easier when you have more people because more guns, more ammo, right? That's really what it comes down to. It would have been nice to have AI teammates, but clearly that's not going to be a thing. Who knows in the future? Maybe it will be. I don't know how they plan to revise this based on reviews, but there are definitely some things that are lacking. Like, as a single player, as a solo player, I would love to have been able to experience this by myself with AI teammates. Something like Grog. Give me like the ability to control my squad. Let me get ammo from them. Those kind of things, right? But I gotta admit, it is fun to play this with actual players as well. Even randoms. I was playing with randoms and I was actually having a really good time with a lot of these random people sometimes. A lot of the times it was also shit. So, you know, that's the nature of randomness of randoms. You might get good players, you might get bad players, you don't know. But if you have friends, you're going to have a much better experience going into this. But going back to Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, in that game, when you are engaging targets, almost all of them go down with one shot. It is a one-shot kill more often than not. 2 rounds, they're down. You know, like, you're going to be able to take out a bunch of guys with one magazine, where in this game, yes, it is one-shot headshots. Yes, it is 3 shots center mass to drop a target. But sometimes you are just pumping out way too many rounds, more than you ought to, and it's very easy to just overextend your ammunition and kind of screw yourself in the end because you just went through too many bullets. No matter how many times you're trying to conserve yourself, I'm always trying to conserve my ammo. I'm going for headshots. I'm always trying to be very mindful of what I'm doing. And I can still run out of ammo because the missions are long. Short, but long. Long because it's like a long process to get through each room, each objective, engaging targets, being suppressed. Like, everything about the gameplay itself is solid. It's just the fact that it's really tailored to a co-op experience. You're not really going to be able to play this solo. Not properly anyway, not in any real feasible way. And Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, although it had one-shot kills, you were able to absorb much more ammunition. Like, you get hit multiple times, you get like wounded, you'd flinch when you get shot. You had varying degrees of health, but there were also checkpoints in that game, right? There were checkpoints at certain points, and it allowed you to kind of progress. And if you died, you would start at the checkpoint with fresh health again. So there was like this sense of, yeah, it's challenging and difficult, but at least you were able to kind of like get through the mission. Even if you were limited in ammo in the same way, you had what you had on you and that was it. This is much more difficult because you have what you have on you. This is it, and there's no checkpoints. There's no retries at any point in the mission. You have to have a flawless performance all the way through. Memorizing where the AI is 90% of the time. Engaging them like flawlessly every single time. And it's difficult because the AI have this tendency to do what I like to call Call of Duty syndrome, which is basically there are tons of AI in the map, but they single you out. If you remember playing like veteran mode and like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or any of the older games, the amount of grenades that come raining down on just you. You know, you're sitting there, there's a grenade icon, shit, okay, throw it back. Another grenade icon, shit, throw it back. Oh, another grenade icon, okay, now I can't. You know, there's too many. They're shooting at you like you're behind a bush or a barrier like 100 meters away. There's a bunch of friendlies that are closer, and yet the AI on the roof are shooting at you. Like, it's that kind of sense of like, they pinpoint your position, they focus on you, they ignore the AI, even though in real life, no one would even know you're there because they're too focused on the obvious targets. They're getting tunnel vision, and they're focusing on what's in front of them. They're not going to see you hiding behind a bush 100 meters away. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of thing that annoys me about these kind of games. It's challenging, but challenging in the wrong way. When it's challenging in the right way, it is a much more satisfying experience. So there's a little bit of an imbalance in this game with its difficulty, but I actually like the difficulty that it's at. I like it being as challenging as it is. It just needs to be refined. Keep it to be, like, I want it to stay as challenging as it is, but done properly, right? Balanced correctly. Giving me the ability to actually progress solo, but also as a team, like, or even just scale the difficulty based on what you're doing, right? If you're playing by yourself, or if you have more than one or two teammates, you know, like, you scale the enemy to the amount of players that are in the game, or you scale the ammo, or you just find a way to make it balanced for those who want to play solo. So that's kind of the main issue that I have with the game, is really just that. But overall, I think it's incredible. Now, it's not going to be a representation or a remake of Black Hawk Down from 2003, which is kind of a letdown in a way, because, yeah, it would have been cool to play Market Breakdown and all these, like, missions from, like, you know, Bandits Crossing, River Raid, all these missions that were leading up to the Black Hawk Down event itself. Playing those would have been incredible with the visual fidelity that we have now. That would have been insane to experience, like an actual remaster of the original campaign. But what we got is still a really cool experience. It's like, it's a straight up movie adaptation in a game form. You get to play the movie. That's it. You know, like, it's just the movie. It's as long as the movie. You can complete this campaign in 2 to 3 hours. It's not very long if you manage to go through it smoothly and efficiently with a good team. I still think it's a phenomenal experience. There's a lot to be desired, though. I feel like they could have really taken it further. Like, instead of it just being the movie, I feel like they really should have, like, taken inspiration from the movie, but made it their own. Like, really focusing on the actual conflict itself, how dark and brutal it was. Like, there's a documentary on Netflix, a pretty recent one, that came out this month, Surviving Black Hawk Down. If you have any interest at all in this conflict, I strongly recommend you watch it. They leave a lot of information out, a lot of details. Like, there's a lot of like, I don't know why the fuck they have such difficulty mentioning the Malaysians and their involvement in basically showing up and backing them up. I don't know why the movie doesn't really show that. Nobody really talks about it, but there was a lot of people. I'm pretty sure the Pakistanis were there. There was a lot of people involved in this conflict. They really don't show that as much. And that's a lot of missed opportunities for me with this game, is they really could have taken the time to really portray this conflict as accurately and as realistically as possible, showing, you know, the horrible nature of, like, what happened to a lot of civilians. Like, a lot of civilians were getting killed. Lots of soldiers talked about how at some points it was like they just had to shoot at fucking everything because you had enemy combatants mixed in with civilians, and it's like, how the fuck do you engage these people without accidentally killing civilians? It got to a point where they were just actively shooting everything, and there's, like, you can see, like, children, women, they were all getting killed in this conflict. It was a horrible ordeal. Absolutely brutal, grueling conflict, this battle in Mogadishu. And it's partly why it's like, it's been such a fascinating event to me. Like, this one, I don't know why, but it really just resonates with me. The idea that a special forces operation went south, and because of it, it was like thousands of people against 160, and it's just against all odds trying to fight their way out of that. But in the way of fighting out of that, they ended up, like, having to, it's like no one wants to talk about it, right? Because they had to do some pretty fucked up shit to get out of that conflict, to get out of this fight. It's crazy. It's crazy what went down during that entire battle. And it would have been really awesome to see a proper representation of that instead of just a movie adaptation turned into a game where you just get this rah America, we're fighting the militia. Like, there's no civilians in this game, right? The only time you see civilians is in the Humvee mission. You're driving around the city in the Humvee. There's civilians there. They tell you not to engage them. You shoot a civilian, it's mission failure. That's the only real time you see civilians. You don't get the sense of, like, the crowds, the density of the amount of Somalis that were there. You don't really get that feeling because there were thousands of them. thousands, the whole city just bearing down on them. Women pointing out American troops to the militiamen so they can shoot at them. Like, it's crazy. You don't get that sensation in this game. You get the sensation of a mass sense of chaos with all the militia shooting at you from all different directions. But the scale was much bigger in real life. And it's kind of lost in the game in that one sense. If they really wanted to push the movie, push the cinematics, they should have went in that direction and focused on really drawing out this event versus creating just this really quick, fast, like each segment of what happened. Like, oh, okay, we go to the building. Okay, now we're in the convoy, escort the convoy out. Oh, okay, helicopter gets shot down. Oh, okay, like it's just very like structured and quick compared to the overall like fluid nature of what was happening. All the moving parts, all the moving pieces to really make this conflict feel alive. Still a phenomenal experience, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they could have done so much more with it, especially if they're not actually remastering and recreating the 2003 classic. So that's kind of where I stand on the game. I know I've been rambling for a super long time now. Should probably wrap this up because we're at 21 minutes in this recording, but that is how I feel. I think the game is fantastic the way it is. The gameplay is great. The pacing, everything's great. I just wish the AI was a little bit more refined. I wish the single player was really a feasible option, and it's just a little disappointing that it could have been better, but I still really like what I got, especially how it's free, right? This is a free campaign. It plays and looks great. I can't complain too much about a free campaign. Like, let's be real here. They gave this to us for free. They were originally planning on charging for it. It's quite possible that the reason why it's free is because they realized it wasn't perfect, like they've been saying in that interview. It's not perfect, but we put a lot of love into it, and here it is. And yeah, you can definitely see the love put into this, the care, the attention to detail. It's all there. But man, it could have been so much more, and it would have been awesome if it was. But I'm still happy overall with what I got. I guess that's all I got for you guys. It's not perfect, like they said, but it still looks and plays beautifully. And I just wish you could play it single player more feasibly. I wish there was more AI. I wish there was a little bit more, ammunition. Those kind of things. But I digress. My name's been PepperBelly. Thank you guys for joining me on this video. Let me know in the comments if you played the game, what you think of it. I'm curious to see. I know a lot of people are all over the place with this game. Some people love it. Some people hate it. More people don't like it. Then obviously they like it. So I'm curious to see what you guys' thoughts are on it. I will see you guys on the next one.